In a bygone era, the human kingdom, ruled by the greedy King Henry, harbored envy toward its neighbor, the enchanting Moors. Within this majestic land dwelled Maleficent, a fairy of unparalleled beauty and power. After mending the branch of the grand tree, Maleficent soars over the breathtaking and stunning expanse of the moors. Her majestic wings beating powerfully where the creatures welcome her with warmth. However, she soon spots the three distressed fairies, Thistlewit, Knotgrass and Flittle, and descends to learn about a human thief lurking at the pool of jewels. Concerned, Maleficent takes to the skies once more. With a fierce determination, Maleficent heads towards the pool, with her wings slicing through the air. Upon reaching the pool, she confronted the thief, Stefan, his eyes gleaming with mischief. Undaunted, Maleficent introduced herself, her voice commanding respect. She demands the return of the stolen jewel, which he reluctantly surrenders. Later, Maleficent escorts him to the edge of the moors, and Stefan's dreams of one day living in the castle of the human kingdom spilled forth. Then Stefan told her he was an orphan, and Maleficent, who was also an orphan, felt kinship towards the boy. To solidify their bond, they exchange a handshake, but Maleficent quickly withdraws as his iron ring sears her skin. When she reveals that iron is harmful to fairies, Stefan expresses his regret and tosses the ring aside. This gesture resonates with Maleficent, as he willingly gives up something valuable to him to comfort her, marking the beginning of their unexpected friendship. As they spend more time together, their connection deepens and friendship blossomed into romance, but Stefan's ambition would soon consume him. On Maleficent's 16th birthday, Stefan gifted her with a kiss which he claimed was a true love's kiss. However, as the years pass, their relationship begins to fade as Stefan's visits became less frequent due to his ambitions in the human realm. Although she has become the guardian of the moors, Maleficent feels a profound loneliness and her heart began to freeze. On a fateful day, while resting on a cliff, she spotted King Henry's battalion marching towards her home, the moors. She swiftly takes flight and heads to confront them. At the border, she finds King Henry leading the troops, who orders the destruction and plundering of her home. Maleficent warns them to stay back, but Henry insists on her execution. In response, with a fierce battle cry, she calls upon the creatures of the moors, rallying them into an army of her own. King Henry, now terrified by the appearance of the moors' defenders, looked like he was about to shit his metal pants. Maleficent charges ahead, engaging several soldiers in battle. The clash of steel and magic shook the field as a fierce conflict erupts between the two factions. After dispatching some of the soldiers, Maleficent targets the king, knocking him from his horse and inflicting a mortal wound. As King Henry's soldiers valiantly defended their ruler, Maleficent unleashed her majestic wings, sending them tumbling to the ground. With a fierce determination, she descended upon the king, who retaliated with armored hands, searing a painful mark onto her collarbone. Undeterred, Maleficent stood firm, forcing the soldiers to retreat, dragging their vanquished king alongside. Before we continue, make sure you like the video and subscribe. Now, with King Henry nearing death, after suffering a crushing defeat from the battle he led against the defenders of the moors, he ordered vengeance against Maleficent, promising the throne and his daughter to whoever succeeds in killing her. Stefan, now one of Henry's knights, finds himself deep in thought, as the weight of the king's words seats heavy on his conscience. Later, he splashes water on his face and gazes into the mirror with determination. At dawn, Stefan seeks out Maleficent, warning her of Henry's deadly command. Despite her bitterness over his past neglect, Maleficent listens to his caution. That night, as they share a tender moment in the forest, Stefan offers Maleficent a spiked drink which causes her to fall into a deep sleep. Being hesitant to kill her instead, he severs her wings with a chain. When morning arrives, Maleficent, heartbroken after waking up, cries out in despair upon discovering that her wings have been severed. At the palace, Stefan presents the wings to the dying King Henry, who praises him for his triumph over Maleficent. The once majestic wings now hung lifeless, a symbol of Stefan's treachery. Meanwhile, Maleficent transforms a twig into a staff and makes her way to a desolate castle to reflect on her loss. The following day, Maleficent observes a crow ensnared by a peasant. With a wave of her hand, she magically transforms the crow into a man, causing the frightened peasant to flee. The newly formed man introduces himself as Dyaval, who pledges his loyalty, and becomes her loyal servant and friend. Then Maleficent appoints him as her trusted spy. Stephen's act got him to the throne as King Henry kept his promise and Stephen is crowned king. When Dyaval informs Maleficent of the coronation, she realizes that Stephen betrayed her to seize the throne. In a fit of rage, she unleashes a burst of green fire into the sky, which Stephen sees from his palace. In the aftermath, Maleficent shrouded the Moors in darkness, crafting a foreboding throne and compelling the creatures to bow before her in forced submission. As time passes, the palace celebrates the birth of Stephen's daughter, Princess Aurora. Maleficent learns of Aurora's lofty christening, her heart filling with a sense of dark delight. As she smiles with a hint of malice, a sea of guests gathered, eager to celebrate the young princess's arrival. Amidst the joyous chatter, 3 benevolent fairies from the moors, Knotgrass, Flittle, and Thistlewit, fluttered in, bearing gifts for the newborn princess. Stephen harbors doubts about their intentions, but the queen persuades him to relent. With warm smiles, Knotgrass grants Aurora the gift of beauty, while Flittle bestows joy upon her. Just as Thistlewit is about to share her blessing, a fierce wind sweeps through, heralding the arrival of Maleficent. Cloaked in black, her piercing gaze commanded attention as she strides toward the throne, voicing her displeasure at not being invited. When Stephen bluntly tells her she is not welcome, Maleficent merely laughs, claiming she has come to offer a gift to Aurora, sending a chill through Stephen's spine. As she nears Aurora's cradle, Maleficent sends the 3 fairies tumbling into a chest. With a surge of green flames and magic, she grants Aurora grace and beauty. The queen breathes a sigh of relief, but Stephen's unease grew. Aware of Maleficent's vengeful nature, he pleads with her to cease. Maleficent's gaze falls upon a spinning wheel spindle, and she curses Aurora. Declaring that before the sun sets on her 16th birthday she will prick her finger on the spindle and fall into a deep slumber. Stephen kneels in desperation, but his pleas only delights Maleficent, who alters her curse rather than retracting it. She proclaims that only true love's kiss can awaken Aurora, taunting Stephen with a reminder of the gift he once gave her at the same age. After confirming the curse is unbreakable, Maleficent departs. In the aftermath, King Stephen commands the destruction of all spinning wheels in the kingdom, burying the remnants deep within the castle dungeon. In secret, he entrusts Aurora's protection to the 3 good fairies. He orders his soldiers to pursue Maleficent, but she conjures an impenetrable wall of thorns, safeguarding the Moors from human intrusion. Soon after, the 3 fairies arrive at a secluded cottage in the woods, where they will raise Aurora. To blend in with the human world, they transform into human forms, and Knotgrass announces that flying is now off-limits. The 3 fairies squabble and lose focus, completely oblivious to Dyaval trailing behind them. Later, Dyaval leads Maleficent to the secluded cottage, where she sneaks a glance at Aurora. Maleficent tries to frighten Aurora, but the girl responds with a sweet, innocent smile. The following day, Aurora cries as the clumsy fairies struggle to feed her properly, driving Dyaval to frustration and infuriating Maleficent with the commotion. That night, Dyaval quietly enters the cottage, nourishing Aurora with flower nectar and gently rocking her to sleep. The next morning, the 3 fairies are caught up in a board game when rain begins to pour, unaware that Maleficent is having fun at their expense with her pranks. As days pass, King Stephen's paranoia increasingly intensified, fixating on the idea of Maleficent's demise. One night, his soldiers set fire to the wall of the Moors, however Maleficent's magic awakens the forest, which retaliates against the fleeing soldiers. Afterward, Stephen, furious at his soldiers' failure, drives his dagger into the table in frustration. Suddenly, he remembers Maleficent's vulnerability and commands the ironworkers to be brought in. Years passed, with Maleficent keeping a watchful eye on Aurora from the shadows as she grew. Maleficent sits high in a tree, watching over a cliff where the 3 fairies and Aurora enjoy a picnic nearby. she entertains herself by playing tricks on the fairies. In the midst of their playful tussle, they fail to notice young Aurora wandering toward the cliff's edge, captivated by a butterfly. Maleficent observes, appearing indifferent, but ultimately uses the vines to guide Aurora back to safety. Later, young Aurora explores the woods and stumbles upon Maleficent. Although Maleficent attempts to brush her off coldly, the little girl's innocent affection melts the barriers around Maleficent's heart. As the years go by, Aurora blossoms into a graceful and beautiful young woman, just as Maleficent had predicted. At 15, she finds herself wandering through the snow toward the thorny wall of the moors, while Maleficent and Djéval watch from a distance. The soldiers stationed at the border of the moors spot Aurora's cloaked figure and misinterpret her presence. Maleficent commands Djéval to go after the soldiers, transforming him into a wolf in the process. As the soldiers dismiss Aurora as just a peasant girl, they suddenly hear ominous growls. Maleficent approaches, casting a spell that makes Aurora drift into a deep sleep. When Djéval rushes in, the soldiers panic and flee. However, Maleficent stands her ground, blocking their escape. With a wave of her hand, she lifts the soldiers into the air, causing them to crash into one another. In a powerful surge of magic, she sends them crashing into the trees, rendering them unconscious. Afterward, she touches a steel helmet, recoiling as her hand burns from the contact. When Djéval returns, she transforms him back into his human form. Annoyed at being turned into a wolf that hunts birds, Djéval grumbles until Maleficent changes him back into a crow to silence him. She then leads Aurora inside the moors through the thorny barriers and gently lays her down. Hiding behind a tree, Maleficent awakens Aurora from the spell. Aurora is instantly captivated by the enchanting landscape and the light fairies flitting around her. Suddenly, the fairies scatters in fright of Maleficent's presence. Turning towards the shadow where Maleficent is concealed, Aurora calls out, seemingly aware of her presence. Instead of fear, she beams with joy, recognizing Maleficent as her fairy godmother who has watched over her since she was a child. When Djéval arrives, Aurora coos at the familiar bird. Maleficent transforms Djéval back into a human and introduces him to Aurora. The moment feels surreal, yet it does not dampen Aurora's excitement. In her exuberance, Aurora moves closer to Maleficent, who instinctively flinches and puts her back to sleep. Maleficent then carries the floating Aurora home, while the creatures of the moors gaze in awe at her. Soon Maleficent gently places Aurora on her bed and whispers a good night. While in the castle, Stefan, who seemed to have gone crazy at this point, sits alone in his room, talking to Maleficent's wings displayed in a showcase. Lost in his fantasies, he is informed of the Queen's condition, as she lays ill on her deathbed, but the information falls on deaf ears. After their pivotal meeting, Maleficent and Aurora begin to enjoy each other's company in the hayfield. Maleficent found solace in their interactions, her frozen heart slowly melting. As Aurora marvels at the breathtaking scenery, Maleficent finds joy in simply observing her. One evening, the creatures of the moors invite Aurora to join them in a playful mud fight. They become startled when mud accidentally splatters on Maleficent. Contrary to their expectations, she doesn't react with anger. Instead, she playfully douses the chuckling Djéval with mud, bringing delight to both Aurora and the creatures. As Aurora's 16th birthday approached, that night, while Aurora peacefully sleeps, Maleficent attempts to lift her curse but finds herself unsuccessful. The dark magic behind the curse had become too powerful, even for its creator. The next day, Aurora inquires about Maleficent's lack of wings. Initially reluctant to discuss the topic, Maleficent eventually gives in to Aurora's curiosity. With a sense of nostalgia, she recounts the beauty and strength of her once magnificent wings. Sensing the sorrow in her words, Aurora embraces Maleficent, but she pulls away. The next day, Maleficent attempts to reveal the truth about the curse, but Aurora unexpectedly expresses her desire to live with her in the moors. Relieved that Aurora will be safe from any spinning wheels there, Maleficent supports her choice. Before departing, Aurora announces her intention to inform her guardians. While preparing, Aurora is met by Prince Philip, son of King John of Ulstead, who arrived at the forest politely seeking directions to King Stephen's castle. They exchanged greetings affectionately, and Dyaval realized and tells Maleficent he might be Aurora's only chance at breaking the curse. Which Maleficent chuckles in response, convinced that true love is a myth. Later, when Aurora arrives at the secluded cottage, she finds out the truth from the three fairies about the curse and that her father was still alive. She went back and confronts Maleficent regarding the curse. It dawns on her that her fairy godmother is the very evil fairy who placed the curse on her. Filled with regret, Maleficent reaches out to Aurora, but Aurora recoils in disgust, labeling her as evil before storming off. Following Aurora's furious exit, Maleficent instructs Dyaval to locate Philip. Later, Aurora departs from her home, riding towards Stephen's castle. After almost 16 years, Aurora finally returns back to the castle to meet her father. She finds Stephen strategizing with his knights for a battle against Maleficent. Instead of the warm welcome she anticipated, Stephen grumbles about the fairies returning her a day early. He orders her to be locked away and then returns to his knights, commanding them to prepare a trap for Maleficent. Back in their fairy forms, the three fairies rush to find Aurora in her room. As the curse started to take effect, Aurora feels a tingling sensation in her forefinger and suddenly finds herself drawn to a wall, discovering a door hidden beneath a drape. When a handmaiden opens the door, Aurora bolts out. Maleficent finds Philip, who had returned to the forest in search of Aurora, and swiftly casts a spell that puts him into a deep sleep. Transforming Dyaval into a horse, she rides off toward the castle, bringing Philip with her. As Aurora's finger begins to show green streaks, she walks in a daze. She makes her way to the dungeon, where she discovers the remnants of the kingdom's spinning wheels. Meanwhile, Maleficent rides on, as night falls rapidly. In the dungeon, the curse's magic conjures a spinning wheel. Just as Maleficent arrives at the castle, Aurora pricks her finger on the spindle just before sunset. She collapses, and Maleficent realizes the curse has taken effect. Moments later, a handmaiden finds Aurora and kneels in sorrow. Despite knowing she's walking into danger, Maleficent heads toward the castle. When the three fairies enter Aurora's chamber, Stephen berates them for failing to protect her. Knotgrass insists that Aurora is merely asleep, but Stephen erupts in anger, claiming she will sleep forever because true love is a myth. Maleficent and Dyaval breaches the iron-fortified castle entrance, while closely guiding the floating Philip. Upon reaching the passage outside Aurora's room, she uses Philip to distract a guard, knocking him down in the process. Maleficent dispels her glamour and drops Philip outside the door, alerting the three fairies within. Realizing he is a prince, they hastily pull him toward Aurora's bedside. It becomes clear that Philip is captivated by Aurora's beauty, prompting Flittle to urge him to kiss her. Just then, Maleficent and Dyaval slip into the room. Philip kisses Aurora, but she does not awaken. Disheartened, the three fairies leave in search of another way to rouse her, dragging Philip out with them. Once the door closes, Maleficent reiterates her belief that true love is a fallacy. As she approaches Aurora, Maleficent's tears and vow to protect her spark a change. Aurora awoke after Maleficent kissed her forehead, greeting her with a warm smile of forgiveness and love. Dyaval observes, recognizing the power of true love in that moment. Meanwhile, news of Maleficent's presence reaches Stephen. As Maleficent and Aurora descend the stairs, Aurora expresses her desire to return to the moors, as Maleficent leads the way through the deserted hall. However, just as she calls for Aurora, an iron net ensnares her. Soldiers quickly appear, attacking Maleficent with their spears while others restrain Aurora. In response, Maleficent transforms Dyaval into a dragon, who unleashes fire upon the soldiers, freeing her in the chaos. The ensuing destruction sends debris crashing down, prompting Aurora to flee upstairs into a room. While Dyaval is chained by the soldiers, they surround the weakened Maleficent with iron shields. A heavily armored Stefan then appears and joins the fray. While upstairs, Aurora finds the glass cage where Maleficent's wings hung and smashes it to the ground. Just as Stefan lunges for the kill, the mighty wings find Maleficent and reattaches itself to her, and with restored wings, she rises majestically. The soldiers attack, but she skillfully dodges their strikes and dislodges a burning chandelier from the ceiling. As it crashes down near Dyaval, the soldiers lose their grip on him. Maleficent then takes Stefan for a free ride and lands on a tower. Unwilling to kill him, she declares the fight over, but Stefan tackles her from behind, knocking them both off the high tower. She saves herself with her wings while Stefan loses grip and falls to his demise. She then lands beside his lifeless body, bowing her head in sorrow. The next day, Maleficent dismantles the Wall of Thorns, bringing the Moors back to their former splendor. Maleficent now unified the human kingdom and the Moors, crowning Aurora queen. The movie concludes with Maleficent and Dyaval soaring into the sky, symbolizing redemption and newfound peace. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to leave a comment on your thoughts and share. Thanks for watching.